Okay, so in this video we're just going to recap how to use toonboom for hand-drawn animation. Take a look at the interface and then just using the X sheet, very basically, some of the problems we might run into. So this is the file. I already put the audio track on, and if I don't want to hear the audio I can just turn off the scrubbing and the audio. And for any track you don't want to see, you can hide these little eyeballs for that. So I did already put the color card in the last tutorial. Remember, if we go to render and animation and our line is in black, you won't see anything. It's going to show up as a black field if you don't have this color card. And we looked at that in class. So I put the color card in, and I'm going to put, I do have one layer here. Just pulling it above the, if I can. No, it doesn't want me to move the audio. Okay, so there we go. So I have the one layer, and I will make another layer. So there's different ways I can make a new drawing layer. Remember, we have a choice between vector and bitmap, and it's just best to make a vector image for this software unless there's a reason that you need to make a bitmap, because there are advantages to the vector. So as we go to draw, we're going to just click here with this little same icon as the drawing layer and pick if we want to have vector or bitmap, and then if we want to include the color art layer. So we're not going to talk about the line art, color art in this video. After you make your drawing layer, you can hit add and close to close the layer, or you can hit add and then you can make another drawing layer. So it allows you to name your layers here. The other way I can get to this is by clicking on the plus, and we have a lot of choice of different options, and one is the drawing layer. So we did sound in the last video, and we can do the drawing layer. I did go over pegging and setting up cameras, so I'll go over that again today. So here we go. If you don't see the X sheet in your toolbar, you can hit the plus and then pick X sheet from the list, and then you'll have your X sheet. You can also go up to Window and then pick different toolbars up here. So I do have the X sheet. We can also go into workspaces and change the workspace. So maybe you want to do a hand-drawn workspace. Alright, so when we're doing our drawings, just remember that each drawing that you do is going to be stored in a memory. We won't be able to see them until you render out here, but it will be stored in the memory. So if I go and I make a drawing, and I'm just going to call this 1, and just do a quick line with my brush tool, that drawing is in memory. And if I were to go and click on another frame and draw a 2, and then double click and type in 1, now that drawing comes back. Now this becomes an issue when you want to extend a drawing. So let me extend this drawing number 1, and I want to add to it. So if on this frame, if I want it to be different than these, and I go to draw something on that frame, it updates on all the frames. So the way to avoid this, there are two ways, but I can right click and I can copy, right, cell from X sheet, and then I can right click and say paste special. And when you click to paste special, it's going to ask you if you want to always create drawing file, and I'm going to click yes for that. And then now when it pastes it as 1_1. So if I make another little symbol, when I go back to the 1 drawings, we don't have that little addition. Another thing you can do is when I'm on number 2, is I can go and I can use my selection tool, and I can select this, and then Control C to copy, come down and make a new drawing, and then Control V to paste. And by doing that, it creates a new drawing in the memory. So those are two things that you can do to avoid that little issue. And because it's vector, we can go and deform it a bit. You can go in and you have your selection tool, and then here you have your contour editor, and we can select pieces of this line and manipulate them. So if I zoom in a bit, I can grab and pull this apart. So the brush tool, and I'm going to go into the tools property. We're going to make this a bit fatter. And I'm just using my mouse right now. I'm not using a stylus tablet. But when I draw, under, a little thinner. When I draw a line, and then I look at this line, it has an exterior contour. If I go to the pencil tool, I can make it thick as well. When I draw a line and I select the line, it has an interior contour. So if I know I need to go and manipulate this object later, having one contour, I'm going to just delete some points to simplify the form, is a little easier to manipulate. Things are overlapped. Let's see if I can get one without deleting the whole line. So I'm probably going to delete if I click on that one. So you can go in and simplify the form later. For some reason I'm zooming instead of trucking. There we go. I'm holding down the space bar to get the hand tool. And we can just select and move that line. When I have the brush tool, it's a little harder to select and move because I have to move both sides to manage it. So if you know you're going to be manipulating the brush tool, just be aware of that. It's easier to do manipulate the pencil tool if you want to manipulate it later. Alright, so that's that with those two issues. The other issue with the color card, remember you need to have one. Whenever you click this button, it's going to store frames in your scene folder that you've set up by opening the project. And then we'll take a quick look at doing our, and again, we're just doing tradigital, we're doing hand-drawn animation. So we'll take another look at just doing pegs. So one of the issues that we have with people is when you're in the camera view, I'm going to turn off the color card, you have this gray field. And if you go into the drawing view, we don't see all the layers, we only see one layer at a time. So if I add another layer, just make a new layer, and I don't care about the name. If I come in here and I do some sort of drawing, so I'll use the brush and I'll use red. If I go back to this layer, I can see that. When I go into the drawing view, when I'm on this layer, I only see this layer, and vice versa. So when you're in the camera view, it does show you the camera field, and this is what the camera's going to see. And that's one advantage for being in the camera field. Some people don't like the fact that it's gray. If you put the color card on, then it pretty much looks like the drawing view. Just remember the camera view has the camera field, and if I draw outside of this camera field, when I render, I won't see that. I won't see any information outside of that. So let's say I accidentally drew outside of this. I need to put in a camera, and if I want to animate that camera, I'll need a camera peg. So we're going to do plus camera, and then we have to make sure that we're seeing through that camera. So when you go into scene, you can pick the camera that we're seeing through, and in this way when the scene renders, we'll see through that camera. Right now the camera's set up where the other camera was. So I'm going to have to move it. And the way I'm going to move it is go into, I'm going to do the front view or the top view. I like the top view. And I can see from here where the camera is. So I have to select this camera, and if I use my hand tool, you can see that this is where the camera is and this is where the drawing plane is. If you come up and you grab this manipulate tool, so my translate, I can move that camera. You might not see this little menu. So if you don't see the menu, I'm going to go into my toolbars, and it should be in the advanced tools. So the advanced animation tools, I turned it off, turn it back on, and they're here. And if I click on this one, I can click the camera and pull the camera back and reframe it however I want, so I can reframe my scene. If I need to animate the camera over time, then select the camera and add a peg. So by adding a peg, you want to select the camera peg layer, and then you can set keyframes for this. So I'm going to put my playhead, let's go all the way to the, okay. Just can't grab this, got to move this bar over. Let's go all the way to the beginning of the timeline. My playhead wasn't in the timeline at the beginning. I'm just going to take this one frame and extend it so we can see these red lines. And on this first frame, I want to be on the camera peg layer, and then I'm going to put a keyframe in. So we're just going to come up here and insert keyframe. And now I'm going to move forward in time, and then I can put in another keyframe. So now if I move this, gotta make sure I have the camera selected. If I move this camera, so I'm kind of doing a wobbly truck pan, then we'll have that animation of the camera move. So we can peg the camera, we can peg different drawing layers. You can peg a background and move the background. But that's how you put a camera peg on, view the camera peg, and with this advanced drawing tool you can actually move it side to side in this viewport as well. So just use this advanced drawing tool. Okay, if anybody has questions, please email me and I'll be happy to give you more information. All this is puppet pinning. We're not going to deal with that in this class. We're just going to be up here with the basic tradigital drawing tools.